Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, this is Red O'Loughlin on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. As you saw at the graphic just a moment ago, today this is my 150th show on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. They have a couple channels on YouTube. One of them is just slightly under 100,000. Expect to reach that 100,000 mark here very shortly. I guess probably 6,200 last time I looked as far as total broadcasts on YouTube on that particular USA Global TV and Radio Network channel. And it offers many, many opportunities. Some shows are once a week, some shows are once a month, but I believe that Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck offers about 60 shows a month for your viewing pleasure, and also the opportunity to have a show just like I have this one. I just finished a show called The Wise Ones, and another show before that called The Corner Bookstore. So, but today's show, as I'm getting ready to load up let's go ahead and load up my slides, get that part done. It takes an extra second or two to get that done. Okay. Okay, slides. Where are the slides? There we go. Okay, got them now. Thank you. Appreciate the help on that one. Okay. Before I get into the topic and everything, aging, it's something that we're all familiar with. We go through it ourselves. We see it in our kids. We see it in our parents, grandparents. But things don't always happen at the same time. You take something simple like mental aging. Generally speaking, once you hit about 24, 25, your mental age is locked in. That's it. It really doesn't grow anymore. But our bodies grow more, our biological bodies, etc. A lot of things that really do happen in there. So, but if I look at aging, we're basically decaying on a daily basis. On a decade basis, maybe we put on 5 pounds or 10 pounds. So if I look at, what weight was I at 25, at 35, at 45, at 55, etc. My weights didn't stay the same. Of course, being in the military, doing a lot of things on active duty, etc. And then all of a sudden I'm back to, now I'm in a civilian job. I have more of a 9-to-5 environment. Our lives change so that, and our metabolism changes. So many things change. And as such, those couple extra inches pop up, a few extra pounds here, there, and yonder. And if we were to be tested, 25, if I was to do a grip, in fact, it was one of the things I had to do in the military was periodically measure grip strength. And that's a grip strength and walking speed are probably two of the best indicators of your aging, and particularly an assessment of your potential for dementia down the road. But let me go ahead and get the show started, enough just here on generality. So, okay. We're live streaming on Amazon Fire, on Zizzle TV, on E360 TV, on YouTube, a couple different channels on YouTube, several of the Facebook, several of the other social medias. I do my own simulcast on 2 Facebook channels of my own, my personal one and my author page. It's available on Android TV, Apple TV, and more. And a lot of shows come after the fact with regard to podcasting on the audio. So there's well over a dozen outlets that this show can be viewed live and be found in archive form. So I'll talk about that as I get to that slide. But as always, my shows are for awareness and education, primarily with some aspect of health and wellness. I also have a publisher, a writer, a speaker. I do a lot of other things. My interest in health and wellness focuses on longevity and age-related diseases. But the books that you see there can be found on my website or in Barnes & Noble, on KDP, on Amazon, probably another half a dozen to a dozen publishing events, all found on my website, redolaughlin.com. If you're looking for live shows, you just go to YouTube, USA Global TV /streams, and that'll give you the live shows that are happening today. If you want to take a look at a show that was done last week or last month or last year, just go to the USA Global TV on YouTube and /archives and do your search. And then on my website, redolaughlin.com, I have all of the video shows also archived. My topic today is aging from our 20s or 70s. I'm not a medical doctor, never been in the medical field nor the pharmaceutical field. I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. But the underlying cause may still continue to grow. My first true love of life was chemistry, long before I ever met my wife. Got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, came back, picked up another 4 academic degrees in different subjects for a variety of reasons. Also have a bunch of professional certifications that went along with the jobs I had in my civilian life. I'm a retired Navy captain for 31 years in the military. Was very fortunate to visit 61 countries. And as I mentioned, I focus on cause and effect relationships. Been married 56 years. In July, I'll be 57. We have a couple kids, 3 grandkids, and 1 great-grandson just turned a year in January. I'm a best-selling author, written 8 books, independent publisher. I published over 40 books for other authors. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, writer, over 1,000 LinkedIn articles, all original content. And reiterating, the purpose of my discussions today, my presentation, is for education and awareness. During 2024, I was fortunate to be selected as the number 2 and the number 6 TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network for my series, The Wise Ones. So with that, I think we're almost ready to get started. I wrote a book a few years ago called Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging. It's how to live to 100 years of age with the body of a healthy 50-year-old and the mind of a 25-year-old. Well, we just talked the fact that our mind really doesn't grow much beyond 25, but our bodies certainly grow well beyond 50 and sometimes even beyond 100. But that covers a couple different aspects of aging, our telomere length and our human growth hormone factor. And so as you get older, you start having issues with both, and aging. But that's a good book if you're looking at some of those things. In fact, I like that book so much, I only picked a couple. There's another dozen factors that actually have a direct bearing on our aging. I mentioned human growth hormone. As we get older, it declines. You know, if you had, let's say, 1,000 units as a toddler, by the time you get to 70 years of age, you might have less than 100 left of how much our body's actually making. But a simple fast on a daily basis or periodically will ramp up that human growth hormone. There's some other things that can be done. High intensity interval training is one. Telomere length, they erode every time your cell replicates. Lifestyle changes affect our telomere length probably more than anything else. Genomic instability, epigenetic changes, senescence, that's the cellular aging. Mitochondrial dysfunction, we've talked about that a lot in the past. Stem cell exhaustion, and again, something that's not difficult to keep going, but it's one of those things, if you're not aware of it. Deteriorated autophagy. You know, one of the reasons I fast is to crank up my autophagy, to get my body to clean up the cells and to recycle a lot of stuff. Nutrient impairment, we're just not using the nutrients we used to have. Lots of reasons why we age, and a lot of those things are controllable. And so, if once we start looking at things early on, the earlier you can start making changes, the better you'll look, the better you'll feel, the more activities you can do. So let's just go ahead and just jump into the topic today. I mentioned almost a dozen factors, but not all of them act together. I put in this little note here. I was in a grocery store 3 days ago, and I have a habit. If I see a friend and got a really frowny face and whatever, and I'll say, "Why are you so happy?" And then all of a sudden they'll pop up with a little smile. But if I see somebody who is really full of joy, that they just have a natural just love of life on their face, and I'll say, "You seem exceptionally happy today." So as I'm trying to compliment them on their physical appearance, and this woman came by and said, "Oh, today's my birthday. I'm super happy." And without me even asking, she says, "I'm 88 years of age." I said, "Whoa." I said, "You got me by 10 years." And she says, "I'm looking forward." She says, "Every year on my birthday, I go out and I look at the bluebonnets in Texas." I said, "We're going over to the hill country." And anyway, but she looked, I'm serious, she looked 30 years younger than her 88 years of age. Um, Normal build, ability to, I mean, I followed her around the store. We bumped into each other a couple of times. But for 88, you would never have ever suspected it. Uh, but not all of these things start in our 20s. As you start getting older, autophagy, for instance, is one. Human growth hormone is another. There are a lot of things that are not as effective on aging in our 20s as they are, say, in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But then some things start aging as soon as we're born. As we're going through inflammation, oxidation, all those things have some effect on our organs, on our tissues, on our life in general. Gut issues, that's probably, if you're looking at 3 things, your heart, your gut, and your brain. Those are the 3 things that if you want to really concentrate on having a really good retirement, those are the 3 areas of your life that we really kind of overlook. Early on, we basically are bulletproof. We think nothing can happen. We don't even think of disease, death, anything. It's just we're out, we're having fun, and we're just enjoying life. But it erodes. So I'm looking at this thing generically. Yeah, some people are obese at 15. Some people have some heart conditions at 20 years of age. But I'm looking at what is the generic disposition, health-wise, of people every decade, and I'm splitting it down the middle at 25, at 35, at 45, etc. And we should focus on what we should do, not what we've done. Although sometimes what we've done, if we apply a good lessons learned, we can make some good changes. I remember one time coming back from Europe, and I had my very first bone density test, and I was osteopenia, and it just floored me. I couldn't figure out why. It took me about a year. And at that time, I wasn't a researcher, but I was cognizant of, I want to know why I had weakened bones. I'd been a runner for decades. I'd lifted weights for decades. I should never have had a concern about osteopenia. But once I found out what caused that problem, then I could make changes. But as we go through life, our lifestyle priorities, they change, our concerns in life. Sometimes we're constrained by age. Lots of things happen to us. But I think most of us are really and truly interested in what options are available to us that we could either stop potential problems from happening or even possibly reverse potential problems. Let's say I'm starting to have pre-diabetic. Well, maybe I want to reverse that. Maybe I got that extra 40 pounds that I don't want to become obese, but I'm right there on the cusp. There are things that I can do. Maybe I'm stressing out too much. Maybe I have other issues. Well, right now I'm primarily looking at physical, but there are similar things with mental and emotional health that can be looked at from our 20s through our 70s. So let's look a little bit about our 20s. Some of us are there. My grandkids are in their 20s, and I can remember back to that period of time. Just in fact, I got married, went in the military, ended up in Vietnam, ended up just about the time my 20s was over. The Vietnam War subsided. They decided that I no longer needed to be on active duty, and I was ushered out of the service and joined the reserves. Yeah, I can remember my 20s pretty well, even though that was 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. But we had time. If you did it and you were aware of it, you had some education, you could prioritize and establish some healthy habits. That's a good time to start. But most of us don't. We're bulletproof. We don't think about those things. But we also don't think about our sexual health, uh, mental well being. Again, it's just we do what we do without any concern because we're bulletproof. We don't worry about anything. Uh, but if we really concentrated on balancing exercise, okay, I was a runner. I really didn't do anything in weightlifting until years later. Okay. But my exercise when I did start was strictly weightlifting. It wasn't anything with regard to stretching or balance or endurance. It was more focused on a certain thing. So, but balance is something that if we start that habit early, is something that we can really take advantage of because it's going to lead to a lot of benefits down the road. Same thing with balanced nutrition. I make a point quite often about the fact that B12, you're taking it as a pill. It's going to go through stomach acid and basically it's ruined. If you take it under the tongue, it gets into the bloodstream because that cobalamin cannot survive stomach acid, but it will get straight into the bloodstream. But if you're deficient in B12, it starts to mimic Alzheimer's. That's why a lot of age doctors, gerontologists, one of the first things they'll do is give you a B12 shot to see if you might be deficient in that particular vitamin. But there's a lot of vitamins and nutrients, minerals that if we're deficient in it, it's going to make you look older sooner and affect your quality of life. Sleep. Back in our 20s, boy, we could sleep anywhere for any amount of time. And sometimes we push the limits of that. I remember in college, I stayed awake for 166 hours in a row. I had 2 jobs I was doing and going to school. Silly, yeah, shouldn't have done it. I did it, but it's one of those things in memory. We have a tendency because we see everything nowadays, avoid sunlight. So we wear long sleeve shirts, we put a hat on, sunblock, but in reality, sunlight is your friend. We only make one hormone in our body, that's vitamin D3, and we do everything in our power not to make it. Stress management, we don't even know what stress management is back in our 20s. We do know what physical injuries are. We know what smoking is all about. We know what alcohol is, sexually transmitted disease. Those things we know about, but it's a habit that we don't want to get into. So let's bounce over here. We also start seeing the beginning, and primarily from a perspective of stress, but it's also from a perspective of B vitamin deficiency. Our risk of having anxiety and depression kind of get a bump. And so if there's some common trigger out there, then we could actually start seeing some mental health issues as early as our 20s. But we also get the stress from our careers, from life in general, from the family, keeping up with the Joneses, wanting to travel, a new car, having that title of director or whatever it may happen to be. We also have a lot of financial burdens. Again, more stress, a home, the car payments, payment for college, depending on how that's worked out. Sometimes I need special training for becoming a welder, becoming a certified whatever it may happen to be. Lots of things there add to our financial burdens. Our relationships. We're never really taught how to deal with relationships. I was talking with Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck recently about a course she offers on listening. And when you start having relationships and you're talking to the back of somebody's head or you're watching your phone while you're trying to do things, there's a lot of things that we sabotage our relationships because we don't even know what we're supposed to be doing. We were never taught. Same thing about financial accounting. Yeah, that's for accountants, but just maintaining our own finances, our investments for later, those kinds of things, not getting into too much debt, understanding it. So relationships is one of those areas that we're not trained. We just kind of experience it, and divorce rates go up. Stress management, annual physicals. Uh, I had my first annual physical in 1968, and I have not missed one since. And again, we consider our health in our 20s basically bulletproof. There was just no issue for most of us. We didn't consider health any part of our psyche. Okay, now we get into our 30s, where we should be honing and maintaining our healthy habits, such as a baseline for our uh, blood panels, a baseline for cardiac issues, a baseline for a lot of different things. If I know that forever my white blood count is here, for me, my white blood count was always below the minimums, had been forever. And I'm donating blood products twice a week, plasma. I'm donating platelets a couple times a month, it seemed like. But I always knew that my white blood cells, when I would get the results back, were always below normal. And the doctors at the place where I donated plasma and platelets and whole blood are aware, okay, well, the rest of his readings are fine, but that's one that I know for myself, I always had a lower than outside the range. But in 30s, our metabolism starts to slow down a little bit. And that's when cardiac issues can begin, but we're not even interested in finding out that if we have a problem, such as homocysteine. That would be a super easy way to say, well, that's a good baseline to have. I ought to probably be getting that test done, because homocysteine increases as we start having heart issues. But it's so super easy to control with B vitamins and trimethylglycine. So there's some issues there that can be controlled. We're just not doing it. Weight gain, we see that one. Sedentary lifestyle starts to creep in. In our 20s, we did a lot of stuff. In our 30s, we kind of slowed down. In our 40s, we definitely slowed down. Eating habits, well, the habits we had of eating was probably too much, the wrong stuff. We start to see maybe a beginning of wear and tear on our joints and our ability to be mobile, our ability to walk, run, get out of the way, avoid things, slips and falls, etc. We have more stress because now in our 30s, we have family, we have work, we have friends. All of these things add stress. That stress affects our sleep. And so our health is really starting to be affected by these issues, stress, sleep, more so beginning in our 30s, because more things are happening in our lives. And I should be really and truly assessing my lifestyle choices as opposed to just having the habit and doing things. Now, if the habit is a good habit, such as portion control, I switched over years ago to having a salad plate as my primary dinner plate. And that's, you put the food on there, that's what you have. But we go to an all-you-can-eat restaurant, and you take that plate and you fill it up, and you dump it in the trash, and you go back and get another plate, and just goes on and on and on and on, because it's all you can eat. We don't have that lifestyle choice in our mind that pick what I really and truly need to have my nutritional balance, to enjoy the food I have, rather than just gouging everything down. We're not really educated on nutrition, but the habits we have form that deficiency on maybe vitamin E. You have 8 different kinds of vitamin E. One of them, and truly, is super protective of the brain from having a stroke. So if you did have a stroke in your 30s or 40s and you happen to have a deficiency in that one, chances are you're probably going to have some level of side effects coming out of that. But if you happen to have more than just a little bit of, I think it's tocotrienol, that allows the brain to automatically switch roads in our brain where the blood flows. Instead of coming to a stop, it actually shunts off to the side to a blood vessel that's collapsed and ready for use, but something has to activate it. And that particular vitamin is one that does that. So lifestyle choices really start to define how we're going to look and how we're going to function in our retirement. And you have to ask yourself, do your priorities really align with your age, with your family's expectations? Are you going to have more kids? Are you need a bigger home? Your finances, what's going on? So now also what happens in our 30s is we start saying, well, Grandpa died at 59. My father passed away at 52. Both of them had strokes. And we start saying, I'm probably not going to live to 60. And so we start setting expectations. Your family health history is important. It's your genes, but your lifestyle choices can turn on or off a switch that's controlling a gene that's good or bad. So if you need a good gene turned on, those lifestyle choices, I'm talking about your diet, your exercise, your stress management, your sleep, and other factors. Those are things that control whether that gene that can do harm to you or do good to you is turned on and helping or hurting you. 40s, we just talked about genes and our potential health risks. But in our 40s, we also start seeing several other things happening. The risk of cardiovascular disease increases. Well, if you start looking at what you've been eating, you start looking at our changes in our hormones, changes in our muscular skeletal issues, the stress levels and what we're not doing to counter it, the metabolism changes. We get that extra 10 pounds this decade rather than 5. We may now become maybe pre-diabetic. If you're female, perimenopause may be part of that growth cycle. We start to see bone density issues start. And that's such an easy thing to control. That should never be a factor later in life, but it becomes one. But we also start seeing our muscular strength wane. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, grip strength is one thing that they use for measuring our ability to assess age, but also the ability to assess dementia. I thought that was really interesting. First time I ever heard that. In our 40s, we know what the risk of smoking and alcohol are, but we may continue smoking. We may continue alcohol to excess, or we may end up picking other habits up that become addictive over time. But in our 40s, our muscle loss actually becomes apparent. We see our growth in our midsection. We need an extra link or two in our belt. We need new pants, whatever those things are. Maybe from a female perspective, you had a couple kids and never could get rid of that extra weight that was put on. Lots of things really come to fruition in our 40s, and we can control a lot of them, but we don't know how. Or we don't even realize that what we're doing is contributing and making it worse. But we got kids, we got schools, we got finances, we got job movement, stress. Again, it's not the stress that's happening to you. It's what you reach out there and grab a hold of and you won't let go. That is the stress that's really the problem. Lots of ways of getting rid of stress. Smiling is one of the easiest ones. Laughing out loud is another one. And those are things, simple things, But the easiest thing, get out of the physical area of the stress. Now, if the stress is your kids or your wife, probably not going to get out of that area. But you need to find a mechanism that's going to allow you to physically remove that stress from your environment. Now, if it's your boss at work, well, leaving his office might be less stressful. Maybe it's a coworker, but understanding it's the stress and what you hold on to is the first stage in that. Lots of things we can do. We also start noticing in our 40 how fast time goes. It was kind of fast in our 20s and 30s, but boy, all of a sudden that clock just speeds through. Not only the calendar speeds through. It's noticeable. And then we also start looking at our friends. Maybe you had your 25-year-old 25th high school reunion or 30th coming up. Those things are there. And whoa, who's that? I can't recognize them anymore. Our hair starts to change colors or start losing it a lot. I started losing my hair as a teenager. It's one of those things. My dad, same way. But I do have brothers that full heads of hair. So it's just one of those genes that, it caught up with me, caught up with my dad. But I'm perfectly happy with it. Never had a problem. We start seeing the beginnings of some wrinkles in our skin, maybe around crow's feet up here, maybe up in the higher, maybe around the chin, maybe in our neck. Probably not so much in our arms, but generally starting to see some wrinkles occur. Our gait starts to slow a little bit. That's kind of probably the number one sign of your aging is you're not walking as fast as you used to. Our 50s. Okay. What's happening in our 50s? Well, our empty nest. Our kids are no longer living at home. They're finished with college. They're out on their own. They may be married. They may not be. But we're starting to think about retirement. We're also starting to look at the health of our parents. Maybe they're not so good, and say, I certainly don't want to be like them. I want to be more active. I want to be able to do and all of a sudden I think to myself, okay, it's just my wife and I. Kids aren't here. My parents' health. I need to spend more time with them. And so you start changing. And most of my writings are for 55-year-old and older because they are empty nesters and they are seeing their parents' health deteriorate. And so there are things that can be done to help them. But if you don't know, what can you do? Provide emotional support. But parents' health, the empty nest. But I'm saying not so fast, because just because your son or your daughter left doesn't mean they won't be back in 5 or 10 years. It does happen. Things happen in life, and sometimes you're that net, that anchor they come back to. Our risk for just about everything starts to really increase in our 50s. Eye health, bone health, dementia, of course, your cardiovascular, gut health, brain health, lots of issues there. Nutritional supplementation seems to be the go-to. Well, I can take this multivitamin. I don't need to worry about my diet. Well, not everything you eat or in a pill works the same in your body. I mentioned vitamin E. You usually get a synthetic vitamin E, alpha tocopherol, and it's a worthless one. It's of no good whatsoever. Most of what, I'm not saying most of the vitamins, but many of them end up in the toilet because your body can't use them. They're not there with the cofactors that they need. So maybe we start having an awareness of the nutritional needs, but we don't actually start doing anything about it. And by nutritional needs, I'm talking about eating the right kinds of food. We also start seeing our cognitive decline starting in our 50s, our memory, our ability to concentrate. And then we start looking at maybe assessing my skills. What can I do? And I'm talking about my physical ability. If my weight issues are an issue and I'm having problems getting in and out of something, getting out of a chair, my mobility issues, bone health is a big one starting in our 50s and 60s, because now you fall, break something, that becomes an even bigger risk. Diabetes, I am a super big advocate on some kind of annual health assessment, even if it's just a wellness check. If you can catch something early, oh my goodness, you can be so far ahead of things. We also start looking at in our 50s. Yeah, there's some people that still have a fair degree of stress. I've run strength. I've run into some grandfathers that are super strong, but that's just because they've been working outside all their life and it's just part of their life. But we start seeing our grandkids coming into our life, and we start thinking, okay, I want to do this and that. But we also have other concerns. Okay, retirement's right around the corner. Is it time to downsize? Stress. So if you haven't picked up already, stress management is something that if you're not doing several times a day, and different kinds of stress management, might be something to seriously think about. Our 60s, we want to be maintaining our independence, but sometimes our age-related constraints prevent that. We need somebody's help to do a variety of things, even something simple as making sure we're taking our pills every day. It wasn't until I was 73 that I started taking any meds, but I'll talk about that down the road. Mental decline starts to appear. That sounds crazy. Pain issues start to creep in. Hearing loss. Boy, I'm sure to tell you about that one. Cataracts, just all part of aging. Joint issues, bone loss, mobility. That's when our ability to maintain our strength and our balance. If you're doing balanced exercise and you were concentrating on flexibility and strength and balance, then our falls are limited because we have those things that we need. Our relationships start to change a little bit. Deaths in the family, friends, coworkers. Loneliness, relationships is a big factor in aging, because it's when you have that social circle that you can depend on, the levels of loneliness kind of evaporate. Depression is put on a back burner. That sort of circle aspect of your life should be prime. Emotional well-being is reinforced with relationships. we start seeing even more weight and fat accumulation. Our interest in hobbies and things wanes a lot, something that we should be picking up new things we're not. Um, Home environmental changes. Are we looking at slip-proof rugs? Are we looking at being able to give us a handrail in the bathroom or in the shower, something to prevent falls? If we're entering our retirement, are we also have our final plans in place, our long-term care, somebody that knows what hospitalization, where our medical records are at, in-home care? What are our options? Lots of things out there, but we're just not looking at them. 70s, now we're managing health issues. We're managing cognitive decline. The risk of falling is ever present. Osteoporosis, our bone uh, porosity, bone density is an issue. Breaks easily. Frailty, basically looking and being old. Our eating habits. Uh, and this is where maybe you ought to have somebody come in and review your nutritional concerns. What can you change easily that you can do with yourself? Exercise, again, balance, strength, flexibility. Pain management. This becomes a major issue as you start getting into your 70s because a lot of times you end up with medication interference, and even a good pharmacist doesn't know everything, but it's a factor. Walking is probably one of the best exercises you can do in your 70s. Get checkups from specialists. In other words, I didn't have a half a dozen specialists that I have now when I turned 70, but I certainly have them now because of things that have come in. Uh, Diet, uh, low impact exercise is more important. Mental focus, again, a little bit of stress. If I can't do things, I start getting frustrated. Death concerns, cancer, forgetfulness. We start hearing that term comorbidity with COVID, but comorbidity and health tie in because now I have cardiovascular issues. I may have some dementia concerns. I may have some gut issues. Lots of things get into it. And then all of a sudden you say, how did I get in this condition? Or as one famous phrase, if I knew I was going to live this old, I would take better care of myself. But so what would I do? I'm currently 78. At 73, I was on no drugs, no meds, nothing. But I was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam. A lot of things started happening with my heart and other issues. So I had a full blown cardiac baseline, and I had a full blown cardiac baseline when I was 71, and it helped immensely at 73 to be able to say, yeah, this changed. I see more doctors now on a regular basis than I ever have in my entire life. It seems like I have a 4-month or a 6-month appointment all the time. I'm on 5 drugs for some cardiovascular eye, and I'm wearing hearing aids that I never thought I would be doing. But when you fly for 16 years, it's one of those things that kind of happens in addition to being old. As I mentioned earlier, I had my first annual flight physical when I was 68, when I was getting ready to go in the military. I got out in 99. I've never missed an annual physical since then. Been a runner forever, weightlifter, generally knowledgeable about a lot of things, a label reader, and as things changed, organic buying. But my wife's cancer about 10 years ago changed my lifestyle and my focus. I mentioned earlier that I became osteopenia after 6 years on Atkins. This is about 2000. And there was reasons why. I don't have time to go into it right now. Let's see here. I'll try to wrap this thing up. So lifestyle choices, again, diet, exercise, stress, and sleep. And Google is a good reference for all of that. Fasting, I think, is something that everybody should do. Not everybody can do it, but it basically allows autophagy, your body's cleaning and recycling, immunity reset, more organic, get rid of any toxins that might be out there. Again, I research for awareness and education. I'm looking for balanced nutrition. What should you do? Fasting, caloric restriction, balanced exercise, stress and sleep management, and monitor everything that's going on. And I think that's the last slide. Yep, it sure is. So with that, I'm going to bid you adieu and catch you next week. And again, thanks USA Global TV and Radio Network for 150 shows on Talking Heads. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
Meet Red O'Loughlin, TV show host, presenter, and author.
Howdy y'all, Red O'Loughlin here. I'm a TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network.
Red has 3 weekly shows every Thursday.
I've been a TV host now with USA Global probably maybe just a little over 3 years. Probably, I know for sure, 250, 300 shows.
Join Red on the Corner Bookstore.
The Corner Bookstore is one where we talk to authors, publicists, publishers, editors, cover designers, anybody associated with the writing and authoring book production business. You have somebody in that area, I can help you with regard to getting your book done, getting it published, working with you on a cover. A lot of things I can help people with, and I have probably maybe published over 40 books for people so far.
Join Red on The Wise Ones.
On the Wise Ones, I'm looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have wisdom, lessons learned over time that they can share with others. So please go to usaglobaltv.com, sign up and join me there.
Book your session on usaglobaltv.com. Join Red on Talking Heads.
On Talking Heads, I take my experience. I fell in love with chemistry many years ago, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, never practiced chemistry per se, but I did get a chance when my wife was going through chemo to get back into the chemical end of things. I started looking for cause and effect relationships. I had been working at a company doing cause and effect analysis on failures in the field on various products that we made. So I said, why not look at the cellular structure in the body? The chemicals are chemicals. They do certain things. So I take my knowledge of chemistry and research. I write about it. I speak about it. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. I speak on that topic quite often, and the Talking Head show is one that I concentrate my knowledge of health and wellness on in order to help people.
Red is a distinguished Toastmaster.
As a distinguished Toastmaster, I help people get their speeches developed. The presentation is something that I critique all the time with Toastmasters. It's one of those skills that I have. I can easily help you on that one. So from a position of writing, publishing, book coach, speaking, and being a keynote speaker at an event or virtually, depending on how things work out. But those are the things that I can help people with, and I have 3 shows every week here on the USA Global TV and Network, and please join me when you can. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Here are some of the books that Red has written and published. Contact Red at redolaughlin.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.